To be honest, I'm not even sure I should be telling this. It sounds like something you dream up when you're pumped full of painkillers. And for a while, I really truly convinced myself that's all it was. But I've still got the proof. And it keeps me awake. It all started with an appendix. Classic, boring, middle-of-the-night emergency. 1 minute I'm watching a baseball game with a beer. The next I'm curled on the kitchen floor, feeling like I've been stabbed. Fast forward 6 hours, and I'm waking up in a hospital room. Groggy, thirsty, and feeling like my whole abdomen is on fire. It was one of those semi-private rooms. You know the kind. 2 beds, a beige curtain separating them, and the constant rhythmic beep of something. When I was coherent enough, a nurse in ice. Older woman named Pat told me I was in room 312. I'd be there for a couple of days. And my roommate was a man named Mr. Harrison. She said it with that kind of sad, professional pity. He's a long-termer, she explained, tidying my fore. Vegetative state. A car accident about 6 months ago. His family's all out of state, so he doesn't get many visitors. You won't even know he's there. And for the first day, she was right. I was in and out of sleep. I'd hear the nurses come in, the rustle of them changing his sheets or whatever they do, the squeak of their shoes, all from behind that thin beige curtain. I never saw him. I just heard the steady, quiet rhythm of his respirator. It was actually kind of comforting. The first night is when it started. I woke up around 2 a.m. My mouth felt like it was full of cotton, and the pain in my side was a dull, throbbing ache. I was reaching for the little plastic cup of water on my bedside table when I froze. I heard a sound from behind the curtain. It wasn't the respirator. It was wet. It was a soft, gulping sound, like someone drinking, but messily. I stared at the curtain. Mr. Harrison? I whispered. Nothing. Just the beep, whoosh. I must have been half asleep. I managed to get a sip of water and fell back into a drugged sleep. The next morning, I mentioned it to Pat when she brought my breakfast tray. I think I heard Mr. Harrison moving around last night, I said. She smiled that placid nurse smile. Oh, honey, that's not likely. You were probably just hearing his autonomic body functions. Sometimes there are, gurgles. It's all part of it. Don't you worry. She was so reassuring that I just let it go. Of course, gurgles. That makes sense. I spent the day watching terrible daytime TV and trying to figure out how to eat Jell-O with one hand. The second night, it happened again. This time, I was wide awake. 3:15 a.m., according to the clock on the wall. The gulping was there, but it was louder, and it was followed by a different sound. A smacking, like someone licking their lips. A wet, sticky smacking noise. My blood went cold. I am not exaggerating. I could feel the chill start in my feet and move up. Hello? I said, my voice shaking. The smacking stopped. Instantly. I was staring at the curtain, a thin slice of moonlight from the window cutting across it. I saw a shadow, a shape moving against the fabric. Not the shape of a person lying in bed, but a shape that was crouched. It was near the floor, and it was moving toward the gap where the curtain meets the wall. I jammed the call button, my thumb pressing it so hard my nail turned white. A light flicked on in the hall. A different nurse, a younger guy, bustled in. Everything okay in here, Mr. Johnson? My roommate, I stammered. I think he's awake. I think he's out of bed. The nurse sighed, that great, another one kind of sigh. He walked over, pulled the curtain back with a sharp zip of the plastic rings. And there was Mr. Harrison, exactly as described. He was lying flat on his back, eyes closed, a tube in his nose. The respirator went. He hadn't moved an inch. There was no one else in the room. The nurse looked at me. See? Right where he's supposed to be. You're on some pretty strong meds, Mr. Johnson. It can make you a little jumpy. Try to get some sleep. He left. I felt like a complete, total idiot. He was right. I was seeing and hearing things. I was the crazy person in the room, not the man in the next bed. I must have dozed off, because when I woke up, the sun was streaming in. I felt okay. I felt normal. I'd made it through the night. I reached for my breakfast, which was a sad-looking muffin and another red Jell-O. I ate the muffin, but I wasn't in the mood for the Jell-O. A few hours later, I was napping, and Pat came in to check my stitches. When she left, I decided I'd try the Jell-O after all. I looked at my bedside table. The Jell-O cup was gone. I frowned. Did Pat take it? I looked around. On the floor, halfway under my bed, was the empty plastic cup and the little plastic spoon. Both were licked clean. My heart started doing that fast, hammering thing. I must have eaten it. I must have eaten it while I was half asleep and dropped the cup. That was the only explanation. It had to be. I was losing my mind. That night, I refused to sleep. I was going to prove I wasn't crazy. I kept the TV on, the volume low. I watched the hours tick by. 1 a.m., 2 a.m. At 2:45, I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. I was drifting, just drifting. The sound that woke me was not a gulp. It was a whisper. It was right next to my bed. A dry, scraping whisper. So hungry. So hungry. Always so hungry. I didn't open my eyes. I couldn't. I was paralyzed. I could smell something. It was a terrible smell. It was like unwashed hair and spoiled milk and something coppery, like old pennies. I felt a faint breath on my cheek. "Give it," the voice whispered. "Give me." I felt a light, scraping touch on my bedside table. A small clink as something was lifted. It was my water cup. I heard the... And then a satisfied, wet sigh. My eyes snapped open. There was a woman crouched next to my bed. She was not a nurse. She was not a doctor. She was gaunt, skeletal. Her hair was matted in clumps. She was wearing a stolen patient gown, stained and filthy, and she was staring at me. Her eyes were just black pits in the dim light from the hallway. I screamed. I don't think I've ever screamed like that. It was a raw, terrified sound. She hissed like an animal and scuttled backward on all fours, impossibly fast, and slipped behind the curtain. The room exploded in light. The young nurse from before was there. Pat was behind him. "What is it? What's wrong?" "She's in there." I was yelling, pointing, probably hysterical. "There's a woman. She was right here. She's behind the curtain." The nurse, to his credit, moved. He ripped the curtain back again. And just like before, there was Mr. Harrison, flat on his back. Beep, whoosh. But this time, I saw it. The nurse didn't. He was looking at Mr. Harrison. I was looking at the floor, under Mr. Harrison's bed. It was a nest. There were blankets and wrappers, and my God, dozens of empty Jell-O cups, syringes, stolen bandages. And in the middle of it, a laminated ID card. "Look," I whispered, pointing. The nurse looked down. His whole body went rigid. "Pat," he said, his voice suddenly sharp. "Call security, now." The woman was gone. She had crawled under his bed, into the space between it and the wall, and through some kind of maintenance panel that had been pried open. The police came. They figured it out. The woman was not a patient. She was a missing person. A woman from a flyer I'd seen taped to the hospital entrance. She'd been missing for 3 weeks. They think she was a transient who had slipped in, found the empty maintenance tunnels, and had been living in the walls, and coming into this room, Mr. Harrison's room, because he was the perfect roommate. He was quiet. She had been in there for days, in the dark, watching me sleep, eating my food, listening to me talk to the nurses. They never caught her. I checked out of that hospital the next morning, stitches or no stitches. But the proof I mentioned, when the police were clearing out her nest, they found my cell phone charger, which I'd thought I'd lost. And they found my wallet. It was empty, of course, all except for one thing. She had taken the cash, the cards, but she had left my driver's license. And on the back, scratched into the plastic with what I can only assume was a stolen needle, was one word: hungry. In nursing school, they spend a lot of time teaching you about empathy, about the human connection. They don't spend nearly enough time teaching you about the smell of a C. diff infection, or what it feels like to be the only one on the floor who knows how to work the ancient charting software. I'm a good nurse. I love my patients, but I'm a realist. I got my first job on the geriatric wing of an old city hospital. The long-term floor, we called it. It's where people end up. It's a hard floor to work, especially the night shift. It's quiet, but it's a heavy quiet. You're surrounded by people who are, for the most part, at the very end of their lives. My preceptor, the nurse who trained me, was a woman named Brenda. Brenda was a legend. She'd been on that floor for 20 years. Everyone called her the Angel. And she was. She was in her late 50s, soft-spoken, with this incredibly calming presence. Patients who were agitated, who were sundowning, she could just talk them down. She'd sit, hold their hand, and they'd be peaceful. The families adored her. They brought her chocolates, gift cards, wrote glowing reviews to management. She always knew the right thing to say. When a patient was nearing the end, Brenda was the one you wanted. She'd dim the lights, put on soft music, and just be with them. No one, she'd tell me, deserves to die alone. My first few weeks were a blur of learning the med pass, the charting, the personalities. The first death I handled, I was a wreck. It was a man named Mr. Abernathy, a sweet old guy who used to be a baker. Brenda had been with him. He just went, Sarah, she told me, patting my shoulder. So peacefully. It was just his time. God's timing. I believed her. A month later, another one of her favorites, Mrs. Petrov, passed away. Again, Brenda had been with her, holding her hand, just after 3 a.m. She'd been waiting for permission to go, Brenda said, wiping a tear. Her family was so torn up, she was holding on for them. I just told her it was okay, that they'd be okay. It was beautiful, in a sad way. Brenda was doing the hard, necessary work. She was a true angel. The first weird thing was the locket. Mrs. Petrov had this beautiful antique silver locket. She never took it off. Her daughter told me it had a picture of her late husband in it. The day after she passed, I saw Brenda at the nurse's station, polishing that exact locket with a cloth from her pocket before slipping it into her locker. Brenda? I asked. Is that Mrs. Petrov's? She smiled, her eyes all warmth. Oh, yes. Her daughter, Mary, she wanted me to have it, to remember her by. Wasn't that sweet? It was, but it felt odd. Mary had been so distraught. I couldn't imagine her thinking to offer a priceless family heirloom. But who was I to question it? I was the new kid. A few weeks later, another patient, Mr. Henderson. A cranky guy, but Brenda loved him. She'd sneak him ginger ale. And one night, he passed. God's timing, Brenda said. And the next day, I noticed she had a new, very distinctive, old-fashioned fountain pen. I'd seen Mr. Henderson using that exact pen to write letters to his grandson. His son gave it to me, she said, before I could even ask. He said his father would have wanted the Ward's angel to have it. A pattern was starting to form. A really, really ugly one. Brenda's favorites. The ones she spent her quiet time with. The ones who passed, they always had some little sentimental trinket. A locket. A pen. A pair of reading glasses. A silk scarf. And Brenda's locker was full of them. I started to feel sick. I started to watch her. I started checking the charts. This is the part where I could lose my license. I started double-checking her medication logs. And I found it. It was brilliant in the most terrifying way. It was never one big thing. It was an extra 0.5 milligram of Ativan here. A slight overlap in blood pressure medications there. Upping a potassium dose, just enough to cause an arrhythmia in a weak heart. It was all deniable. It was all within the margin of error. Doctor's orders were unclear. The patient was agitated. But when you looked at the combinations, they were lethal. They were just gentle, quiet, lethal nudges. She wasn't an angel of mercy. She was a collector. I didn't know what to do. Go to management? With what? I think our most loved nurse is a serial killer because she has a locket and a pen. They'd fire me. I needed proof. Then, last Tuesday, it all fell apart. I was on my break, scrolling through my phone when I got a text from my mom. It read, "Just letting you know, they're admitting Gramps tonight for observation. He had a fall. He's on the 4th floor, room 412. Just worried." My blood turned to ice. My grandfather, here, in this hospital. I texted back, "I'm on it. I'll go check on him." I looked at the clock. It was 3:05 a.m., the quietest hour. I looked at the floor chart. Brenda was gone. She wasn't at the desk. She wasn't in a patient room. Brenda went to grab a coffee, the other nurse told me. She went? To the 4th floor? I asked. No, just the cafeteria. Why? I didn't answer. I just ran. I took the stairs 2 at a time. The 4th floor was the surgical wing, not geriatrics. She had no business being there. I burst onto the floor. It was silent. I sprinted down the hall. Room 412. The door was cracked open. The room was dark. I pushed it open. And there she was, Brenda, in her scrubs, standing over the bed. My grandfather was asleep, and 4 in his arm. And Brenda had a syringe in her hand. A big one, 30 cc. It was full of something. Something she'd drawn from one of the 4 bags hanging on the pole. Potassium. I could see the orange cap. She was flicking the syringe, getting the air bubbles out. And she was smiling. That same warm, serene smile. "Brenda," I said. My voice was a whisper. She turned, not startled, not guilty. She looked relieved. "Oh, Sarah, honey, you're just in time. I was just checking on your grandfather for you. I saw his name on the admit sheet." What is in the syringe, Brenda?" She looked at it, then back at me. He's in so much pain, honey. I can see it. His daughter, your mother, she's so worried about him. He's just so tired. It's okay. My mother didn't talk to you, I said, my voice shaking. She doesn't have to, Brenda said, her voice like warm milk. I know, it's my gift. She took a step toward the fourth board. I screamed. Not a word, just a sound. I tackled her. I'm 30 years younger, and she still fought like a cornered animal. The syringe went flying, skittering across the floor. Security was there in seconds. It was a blur. The aftermath was a nightmare. The investigation. The police. The hospital tried to bury it, but they couldn't. They exhumed 2 bodies, Mr. Abernathy and Mrs. Petrov. The families, God, the families. They think she's responsible for at least 15 deaths. Maybe more. Over 20 years, 15 peaceful passings. 15 collections. They don't call her the angel anymore. Now, when the press talks about her, they call her the angel of death. But I was there. I saw her face. There was nothing angelic about her. There was just a hunger. A collector who found a way to make her hobby a sacred duty. I still work at that hospital, but I've moved to the maternity ward. I needed to be on a floor where people begin. I'm a security guard. It's not a glamorous job. Let's just get that out of the way. It's 90% boredom and 10%. Well, usually it's just more boredom, but with paperwork. I work the graveyard shift at St. Jude's, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and I pulled the worst of the worst. Assignments. The West Wing Patrol. St. Jude's is old. Like, built in the 50s old. The main hospital is all new and shiny. But the West Wing was decommissioned in 2003. It's just there. 4 floors of peeling paint, dust, and old, creepy equipment. It's used for storage, mostly. Old records, beds that don't work, that kind of thing. My job, my only job, is to walk a patrol. 1 loop at 11 p.m., 1 at 1 a.m., 1 at 3 a.m., and 1 at 5. Just to make sure kids haven't broken in, or the homeless aren't squatting. It's creepy. I won't lie. The lights are on, but they're that weird, dim, emergency-only level. Every sound echoes. My own footsteps sound like someone is following me, but I've been doing it for a year. You get used to it. You put in your headphones, listen to a podcast, and just walk the loop. It all started about a month ago, with a wheelchair. I was on my 1 a.m. loop. 2nd floor, the old surgical ward. I walk down the main hall. It's empty. Just empty. At the far end, there's a bank of old, rusted wheelchairs, all lined up against the wall. I see them every night. I finished my loop, went back to the new building, got a coffee, and sat in the guard shack for an hour. At 3 a.m., I went back. I got to the 2nd floor, turned the corner, and one of the wheelchairs was in the middle of the hall. It was just sitting there, about 20 feet from the others, and it was turned, facing me. I stopped. My heart did that little thump. It's just kids. I was pissed. I grabbed my radio. This is Alex. I'm in West 2nd floor. I think we've got some kids in here. One of the wheelchairs is moved. My boss, Mike, radioed back. Copy. Want me to send backup? Nah, I said. I'll check it out. I checked. I opened every door. I looked in every empty room. Nothing, just dust. I figured they'd heard me coming and bolted out the fire escape. I shoved the wheelchair back against the wall, annoyed, and finished my shift. A few nights later, it was the gurney. I was in the sub-basement. This is the worst part. It's where they keep the old-school anatomy labs and the old incinerator. It stinks down there. It's cold. I was walking the loop when I heard it. From the floor above me. The first floor. It was the unmistakable sound of a hospital gurney. That squeak. I froze. It was 3:17 a.m. No one should be in this building. No one. Mike, I radioed, my voice low. I've got movement, first floor. Sounds like a gurney. I'm going up. Copy, he said. I'm watching the cameras on the connecting doors. No one went in. That was not reassuring. I took the stairs quiet. I pushed open the door to the first floor. The hallway was empty. But the smell, there was a new smell. It wasn't just dust. It was acrid, chemical, and sweet. Like burnt meat. It was coming from the ventilation, drifting up from the incinerator room 1 floor below. I went back down. The incinerator room is at the end of a long concrete tunnel. It's a huge iron door with a big padlock on it. The hospital told us it hasn't been operational since the 90s. It's just there. But the padlock was on. The door was cold. And now the squeaking had stopped. I was officially spooked. But I was also pissed. Someone was messing with me. And I knew who. It had to be Milo. Milo was one of the head janitors. A quiet, weird guy. He'd been fired about 2 weeks prior. They caught him stealing. Not like office supplies. He was stealing fentanyl patches from the bio-waste bins. They fired him, and he'd been furious. He knew these tunnels better than anyone. It had to be him. The hospital wouldn't spring for cameras in the old wing. So I bought my own. A cheap, motion-activated trail cam. The kind hunters use. I set it up in the sub-basement, pointed right at that long concrete tunnel that led to the incinerator. If Milo or anyone went down there, I'd get a picture. I left it there for 2 nights. Nothing. I was starting to feel stupid. Then, last night, I went on my 5 a.m. loop to retrieve it. I took the SD card out, went back to the guard shack, and plugged it into my laptop. The shift was almost over. The first dozen clips were nothing. Just me, walking by. Then, a clip from 3:22 a.m. The camera clicked on. A figure. It was Milo. He was in his old janitor uniform. I smiled. Got him. I was about to call Mike and tell him I had proof. But Milo wasn't just walking. He was pulling something. He was pulling a gurney. And on the gurney was a black bag. A body bag. I stopped smiling. My blood ran absolutely cold. What was this? Was he stealing bodies? From the morgue? I watched, horrified, as he wheeled the gurney down the hall. He had a key. He took the padlock off the incinerator room door. He opened the heavy iron door, and my God, he struggled with the bag. It was heavy. He was grunting. He shoved it off the gurney and into the incinerator. Then he closed the door, put the padlock back on, and walked away. My hands were shaking. I was a witness to? What? Grave robbing? Illegal body disposal? I had to tell someone. I grabbed my phone to call 911. I wasn't even going to bother with Mike. But as I was dialing, my laptop screen flickered. It was playing the next video. Time-stamped 3:24 a.m. It was a close-up. Milo must have triggered the camera again on his way out. But the camera wasn't focused on him. It was focused on the gurney he'd left behind. And on the gurney, there was a small red rectangular box. I recognized it. It was one of those biohazard boxes. For sharps. Needles. But that's not what made me drop my phone. It was the bag. The black body bag. The one he had just put in the incinerator. The video was grainy, but I saw it. just before he closed the door. The bag moved. It wasn't a body. It was a person. A person who was alive. My mind was reeling. I couldn't breathe. The homeless people. The E is always full of them. John does. People who come in high or drunk. And what? And Milo, he wasn't disposing of bodies. I looked at the video file again. This was from last night. No, wait, the time's down. The date, it was from tonight. It was from 2 hours ago. This was happening now. Before I could even stand up, my radio crackled to life. It was Mike. His voice was casual. "Hey, Alex, just got a call from the fire department. They're getting an automated heat alarm from somewhere in the West Wing. Sub-basement. Can you go check it out? It's probably just that old boiler acting up again. Let me know what you find." I stood up. My legs felt like water. The smell. The sweet, acrid smell. The alarm. The incinerator. He had turned it on. I grabbed my radio. "Mike," I said, my voice hoarse. Send everyone. Call the police. He's in the sub-basement. He's burning someone." I ran. I ran faster than I've ever run. I don't know what I thought I was going to do. I got to the sub-basement, skidded down the concrete hall. The tunnel was hot. It was like an oven. And the smell was overwhelming. The padlock was on the door. I could hear a low thump and a roar. The roar of the furnace. I got there just as the police did. They had to use bolt cutters. It was too late. Milo, he wasn't fired for stealing fentanyl. He was fired for stockpiling it. He was luring homeless people from the EL waiting room, promising them a warm place to sleep. He'd overdose them. But not all the way. He wasn't a grave robber. He was a murderer. And he'd been using the one part of the hospital nobody ever looked at as his own private little furnace. I quit the next day. I couldn't. I can't be in that building. I can't even go to a hospital. All I can hear is that squeak of the gurney, and that low, roaring thump. And that's all for tonight. Remember, the most terrifying monsters are the ones that look just like us. The ones who might even live right next door. If these stories serve as a good reminder to trust your instincts, then show your support and like and subscribe. Hitting that bell means you'll get a warning before the next nightmare begins. Sleep well, if you can.